and welcome to GM Talks. Today we're gonna look into a little bit of something bad actually, because we are going after the weak players. And in the weak players, I don't mean weak in a rating sense, but people who show weakness, people who you can feel that they don't have the same confidence, they are low on self-esteem, and they might trip over or play below level, and that's what you're going to exploit, and that's what everybody exploits. Of course, when you're preparing for opponent, you try to find weaknesses in their game. Maybe they are not very good in the ending, maybe they're not very good in the opening, and maybe they have some flaws in their opening repertoire, and you try to find that and exploit that. But you can also, in a tournament, sense that sometimes a player's game is off, and everybody's like piranhas jump into it and take him. And that's what's happening at the moment in St. Louis Rapid and Blitz, where Praggnanandhaa is having a very hard time, and they're just jumping on him. And we're gonna see an example where Caruana just takes huge chances with black, just because he feels that Caruana is not gonna be up to it. He's not gonna be able to play this game on the level he usually will. The interesting thing is Praggnanandhaa was one of the guys that the old guard had a lot of respect for, because he really understands chess. He's a really sort of where you can say that something like Gukas and Eric Yasi and so on, they maybe have some limitations in their understanding, but Praggnanandhaa, he's really good at understanding chess. But at St. Louis, also in the tournament earlier, he didn't look that good. So maybe he's having a downswing, you would call it, in poker. In poker, if you want to be a successful poker player, all you have to do is play against weaker players. Don't let your ego say, I gotta beat this guy, Gus Hansen, or whoever is at the table. No, find bad players and play with them, and you're gonna win a lot of money. That's the idea of poker. But the idea of chess is also when you find someone who's weak or you go after them. So let's see the game here of course it's a rapid game, and Praggnanandhaa is white, and actually here he plays the Berlin, and if I was Prag, I would sort of say, okay, I'm having a hard time here. I'm not getting many points. I'm losing when I'm worse, and I'm not winning when I'm better. So let's just castle and play rook e1 and take the draw. But no, he wanted to have a fight, and also in general that's a good idea for players who are struggling, because you have to get out of it. And the only way to get out of it is by winning. But and here Caruana, he is really sensing that Prag he's not really here. He's definitely not really here, so he's going after him for sure. So knight e7, and that's also a sort of a because the first thing is to notice that this is a trick. You can't eat the pawn, then c6 and something like this, and this check here is really bad news. Picking up the knight on e5, little tricky stuff. So that's the tactical justification for knight e7, but it is wasting a lot of time just moving the knight again in the opening. White has done nothing wrong. To be honest, this cannot really be good. Knight c3 makes sense. c6, that was the point. By the way, the positional reasoning behind knight e7 is, of course, that the knight is sort of misplaced on c6, whereas and you would rather have a pawn there. The problem is that you're wasting a lot of time here. d6, covering this pawn now. Bishop b3. I think here white should play d4, because then black will not be able to keep the pawn on e5, and that would probably have been better. He has to take. The thing is something like this, and you take, and the f7 pawn will go. So that's sort of the problem. So if you play d4 immediately here, he has to take, It's not a disaster, this kind of position. It's an interesting position, but I still feel that, I would prefer to be white here. White should be better. The knight, I'm not sure, is that well placed on d6. Bishop b3 is of course a decent move. Again, knight d6 doesn't look that good due to knight d5 maybe. So he goes h6, and he is really provoking Pragg here. And here comes d4, but now, look at that. Now he had time to play queen c7. So, and I've sensed that Pragg, he probably felt a little bit cheated here, because he probably could see that he had to take on d4 before, and now he doesn't have to take anymore. So that's a small victory, and all these, you should not underestimate these psychological small wins in games where people are struggling with their form. Some people cannot admit they're struggling with their form, but if you are struggling with your form, you should sort of admit it somehow and say, okay, I'm going to limit the damage instead of trying to win like I usually would. And here, Pragg, he feels that, okay, black is really taking a lot of liabilities, but knight h4 is just not a good move. It looks wrong, and the problem, of course, it prevents knight d6, because then he will take, and that looks like a horrible pawn position. But black can play d5, and it's not that bad when you have a lot of pieces on the king side to have this structure. Sometimes it would be unpleasant because of this square, but when a lot of pieces on the board, it's not a really big problem. And this guy could find himself out of a job just looking into thin air. And knight d6. And I kind of like black already. Bishop e3. And this is, of course, and he's really provoking him, right? He doesn't have to play that move. It's not necessary. Black is equalized. He can play whatever he likes here. You can play bishop d7, bishop e7, bishop d7, or whatever. No reason to spend another tempo, and you can just sense that Pragg, what is he doing? I'm gonna punish him. I'm gonna really go after him. I'm gonna really he needs to feel the pain here. So opening the F file, that is provocative, because suddenly this guy here is back in the action, and the F file looks nasty, but he had an idea, g4. And basically, he's hoping just something like and take back, and black will castle queen side. And the thing black is hoping is that the dark squares will tell one day, and it will not, f7 will not be a problem. Here, it doesn't look like it's a big problem. So I think he's correct. So, but Pragg is a good player, and he's not going to allow his position to be stifled like that. So he goes to h2. Now the battle is heating up. Take on d4, take back, and that was also provocative. But okay, black is hoping that the bishops will be strong one day, and he takes. And black white castles, and I like this kind of game. It's funny. So this one is hanging now, and black has to d5, covering here, and you have to take that. Black is of course ready for fast action. Getting the king. If you just could get the king over here somewhere, then white's king looks really bare on the king side. And he took. And he took on d2, and we are having fun here. And king takes d2. I think that was not necessary. I think actually rook f2 or something is probably the best move. It looks strange, but just letting this pawn shield the king is something that I learned from Bent Larsen, who learned it from someone else. I think Lasbo wrote about it. So, but now the king is out in the open, and we have a check. The knight goes in, and it opens the g file here. King has to go. Bishop ace3, coming out with tempo. Check, and bishop e7. And this is the crucial position in the game. And of course you sense that black took a lot of chances to get here. This looks spooky, scary, and but for a guy like Caruana, who's is not having a good tournament, this is not so easy, right? So what should you play here with white? The thing is, if black gets to castle and play rook d8 or something, your king is just dead in the water. Rook d8, bishop d2, knight h3 check or something. So if the king is allowed out of the game, you are dead, more or less. So that should sort of guide your thinking. So this move is actually very strong. The move he played, rook f2, is so natural, and I understand why he played it, but this move is clearly the way to play. You just have to sacrifice the exchange. And after, for instance, something like this, I don't think you should take actually, but you can play bishop d2 and something rook g8. It's all very interesting. But if you take something like this, and knight takes here, bishop takes, c takes, knight takes, queen d6, and maybe queen e4, and I think white has tremendous compensation here, because you really would like to castle, but the bishop is hanging and you can't get the king out. The king can't go here. Rook, the f pawn is hanging, and something like this is not that much fun either. So I think white is better here, and I don't think he can take on f4. So on f1 he has to keep it alive, and to be honest, this is what he should have played. Queen e3. It's something the computer finds. Rook f2 looks very natural, covering this square, not losing the exchange, getting ready for queen e3, castle and queen e3, and rook g8. What a cold shower. That was clearly not anticipated by the young player from India. The problem is, of course, that if you take here, then this check is pain, followed by this check, and the queen is lost. Oh no! And if you take with the rook, then I think you'll just play something like this, king, because it was hanging with check, and bishop g5, and it's all over. So this was the big problem for. After rook g8, and of course now it's completely lost, and also when you are having a really hard time, you don't get back from something like this. You will not be able to sort of restrain yourself, put in a fantastic defense of some sort. It's just not gonna happen, because you're in your heart, you're already beaten. And check, and d5, and just queen g6, and bad things are coming, bad things indeed for the king. It's not gonna survive. He played queen e4, and here, and this a little bit typical for Caruana. You could imagine that he's not the kind of guy who will bring a lot of girls flowers, because that's not a very romantic move. Bishop c5, but of course it's totally winning, and bishop d2 is just gonna game over. So white resigned here, and a nice game by Caruana, who did really say, okay, this guy, this normally very strong player, is clearly out of shape. I'm gonna go after him, and he did, and that's what you should do. Prey on the weak. to be honest, that's what chess is also about. Anyway, I hope you liked this episode of GM Talks, and if you did, remember to like, subscribe, and most of all, tell your friends about it. Right. Thank you.